Welcome back to $2 Garage, and today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic which is relevant to this channel. It's so you want a cheap Porsche. First caveat you're going to come up against here is there is no such thing as a cheap Porsche. There's a lot of money to fix. It's a European car, it's a German car, blah blah blah. You have a point there. A cheap Porsche is cheap by Porsche standards. It's not going to be a Toyota Corolla running cost. And this shouldn't be said, but if you're looking at basically any of these cars, especially the older they get, I would... Okay, where was I? There was a 968 convertible that came down the road. With any of these cars, even the newest ones, you're going to have a certain level of mechanical experience to upkeep these vehicles. They will be finicky, they will have problems. Perfect example, my 89, this is my good car because it mostly works. This lovely 10-speaker pod here just decided it wanted to stop working today. Setting up some general rules for this video, my budget will be starting from about $2,500 at the absolute bare minimum, which I don't recommend, realistically $3,000 to $4,000, to about 15 grand. By the four-cylinder transaxle cars, I mean the 924S, which was the late 80s, and the 944. Now, the 924S is an excellent value. Mechanically, it is the same as this 944. It has the 8-valve motor. It has 140 horsepower. It is no race car, but it is perfectly fine for normal highway speeds. And the beauty of them is they're worthless. So realistically, you can get a not bring a trailer nice, but a very presentable run and drive 924S here in the US for about 5 grand. You won't get the later model interior, you will get the earlier interior. Okay, so this is something I'm going to recommend. The earlier 924s as well, the one with the Volkswagen 2 liters. The main reason is, even on Bring a Trailer, a nice running project is $2,500. Parts cars are basically free, they're like $500-600 for those. Now, if you're buying a 944 instead of a 924S, like I pointed out there, excellent price and value. A 944, they're a little more clapped out, and both of these cars are going to need lots of little maintenance quite often. Timing belts every 30,000 miles. You're going to have a lot of little issues you need to fix, which, to be fair, if you're buying a car that is nearly 40 years old or older, that's to be expected. Now, a 944 is going to be a little more expensive. This car is a couple $1,000s more into it than a nice 924S, and the one benefit of these cars is they made a ton of them. They were the Entry Level Porsche, and they were cheap for a very long time. We're talking, a run and drive 944 15 years ago was $1,000 here. So there are a lot of parts cars out there, and they're not as easy as they used to be, but you can still get a parts car for $600 if you look. For reference, the red car was originally a parts car that was $750. The gold car was, again, a parts car laying outside. I believe that was also $750, and I know of at least 3 944s. You may or may not see those on the channel in the future if I can get in touch with the owner. That being said, yeah, you can't just type in Porsche 944 on Marketplace and find a car for $700 very often. Yes, it's fun to drive, it's entertaining, it's like a Miata. It's over 30 years old, it's going to have issues. And it's not a modern sports car in the sense of it's not that fast. But these are excellent cars, and if you are mechanically inclined and don't mind doing maintenance or upkeep or things like that, which you expect with a German car, I would highly recommend these transaxle 4-cylinder cars. Next up, we have a early to mid-80s 928s. Most of these were automatic. The occasional manual shows up. You can reasonably find these for about $5,000 to $10,000, somewhere in that range. You will get a functioning vehicle at that price. The ownership history may not be perfect. It may have been in an accident, something along those lines, but it will function. Once again, we have to talk about the problems. Well, these cars were cheap for a very long time. Not as cheap as the 944s, but still cheap. And in their day, in the early 1980s, when they were new, late 70s, they were supercars. They could do 180 miles an hour. So a lot of these cars were used, abused, something broke, they were parked, that kind of thing. So expect there's a good chance you may have to do some work or fiddle with stuff, replace stuff. And I know, a lot of people will get scared at that because they're going to say, oh, that's expensive. Yeah, it can be. But there's plenty of them being broken for parts. There's plenty of parts guys breaking down 80s and, Porsches, sports cars, etc. And realistically, if you're doing all the work yourself, and Car Guy Rule 101, your labor rate is free when it's your own car. Okay, time to change scenery. Switching over to more modern cars, we will start off with the best of them, in my opinion, and that is the 986 Porsche Boxster. These cars were the poor man's Porsche of the early 2000s. I've driven several of them, one of which was an S. I adored it. It is a fantastic car, and overall, I would say it is the best cheap Porsche that you can currently buy here in the US. Realistically, you can get these cars anywhere between $4,000 to $5,000 all the way up to $10,000. And with that, you're getting a 6-cylinder engine in the back, manual, sometimes a 5-speed, sometimes a 6-speed, depending on the year or option. And it is a true Porsche. It is the classic Porsche formula. It is essentially a baby 911. Now, the 987s do have better interior, and they don't have the ugly headlights. They don't have the fried egg headlights. That being said, they're also double the price. So you have a wide year of ranges. The unicorn in the price range is the S. The S is the 6-speed. The S is the bigger engine. I believe it's over 3 liters. And I believe it's the one with 300 horsepower. But realistically, on the cheaper side of things, you're probably looking at a late 90s, so 97, 98, around that range. Maybe not the most desirable color, smaller wheels, and a 5-speed. Realistically, you're going to be dealing with, I believe, a 2.7 liter. It's either a 2.5 or a 2.7. And in all honesty, it's fine. It's slow car fast. My experience is driving an S and a base 2003 Boxster. Both were enjoyable cars. And who cares if the purists don't think it's the best car in the world? Have fun. If it had a 911 badge on it, or you put a hardtop on it and call it a Cayman, people love it. We do have some issues with these cars. They're old, so things are worn out, bushings, etc. The 500-pound gorilla in the room is the IMS bearing, but let's be real here. Most of these cars are at least 20 plus years old. Most of the time, the IMS bearing would have either gone or it's been replaced. So, that's not an issue. And in all honesty, I would get one of these Boxsters before they get expensive. My next recommendation will be a bit controversial, but I think you'll see where I'm coming from. And that is the first-gen Porsche Cayenne. Now, these cars are really cheap. At least here by me in New Jersey, I could go pick up a non-running Cayenne for less than $2,000. So what do you get for your money? You get a full-size SUV. Yes, it uses a lot of Volkswagen Touareg stuff. The base models have a VR6 in them. Slight mistake here. The V6 or the VR6 was a base model feature a couple years in. So 04, 05, your very early cars were V8 only. All of that is true. But overall, you get a full-size functional SUV. It is a Porsche. People don't say it is a Porsche, but you look at the VIN plate. It says Porsche on it. Thus, it's a Porsche. And actually, it is a usable vehicle, and it is a competent 4x4. It's a nice luxury car. If you want to lift it, it's great. You could get them in manual, which is fantastic. And even they made an S, which has a very nice 4.5 liter V8, which sounds good. So, in all honesty, I don't see an early Cayenne, maybe with a lift kit, or you do some enthusiast stuff to it. And again, it's just a nice vehicle, and it's honestly not a bad place to be. And at your price range, you could pick up a nice Cayenne for $5,000. Now, of course, like basically every Porsche on this list, you're gonna have to pay the Porsche tax when it comes to parts. And forget it. If you're not fixing everything yourself and going to a mechanic, just don't buy any of these cars. Now for our last car, And then finally, our honorable mention, which is more of a stretch goal in all honesty. A Porsche Panamera, first gen. Now, the first gen Porsche Panamera is based on the Audi A8. It gets a lot of hate because they're quite ugly, which I kind of agree with, but they are affordable. Now, they were over $100,000, and I consider it the spiritual successor to the 928. That being the case, like every high-end German luxury car, especially coupes, and the high-end ones, especially ones based on Audis, they depreciate like an anchor in the ocean. You could get a 10 to 15-year-old Porsche Panamera that functions for about $8,000 to $10,000. If you want an S, you're looking at about 15, at least here in the US. Now, what do I like about these cars? Yes, they're kind of ugly, but it is a full-sized luxury sedan. It honestly doesn't look that bad enough. And if you buy an S, you get a 4.5-liter V8. It sounds good. It's useful. It has practical trunk space. If you look hard enough, they did offer them in manual from 2010 to 2013. Most of those cars were 6 cylinders, but they do exist. Now, this is where parts become more of an issue. These cars are very complicated. They will have issues. They are aging. That being said, again, I'm assuming you're working on this yourself. Your labor is free, and there's always some parts breaker out there with parts that is maybe expensive, but a hell of a lot cheaper than the dealer. So, what you get for about $10,000 is a nice, full-sized, comfortable, spacious 4-door that is, relatively sporty because Porsche touched it. And it's honestly not a bad value for the money. On top of this, if the car is that bad or you just don't want to work on it, you can always part it out and make, at the very least, a decent chunk of your money back you put into the car to all the other people who want to experience them before they become like the 928s today, where they're all, like, the vast majority of them are totally wrecked. Last but not least, our honorable mention. And I'm going to call this one a stretch goal because this one's going to be somewhere in that teen range. So, $13, $14, $15+ thousand range. And that is a first-gen Porsche Cayman. Cayman was a response from Porsche because a lot of people liked the Boxster, but they wanted one with a roof. So they made it. And it is more of a baby 911 than the Boxster was even. They've gone up. So pre-COVID, you used to be able to find one easily for $10,000 to $15,000, at least here in the United States. Maybe the car didn't have stellar service records, but you could get a car. That being said, since COVID and 996 911s have gone up well over the $20,000 range, they used to be really quite cheap a few years ago. So, your first-gen Caymans, you may be able to get one that isn't the best in the world, but it will be there. Maybe it's salvage title, maybe it doesn't have service records, maybe the miles are high. Again, you're going to have to give up some things, but realistically, in the high teens, the mid to high teens, money-wise, you could pull off, say, a Cayman, and you will have, well, a fairly pure Porsche, very close to a 911 actually, and it's a good car. Now, it depends on the motor. I believe those 6 cylinders have bore scoring issues, so you can't really avoid it. It's when will the engine go, not if. It sucks, but it is what it is. But let's be honest, it's a cheap Porsche, so you're expecting these trade-offs. This is the biggest stretch because this car is by far going to have the most expensive parts. It does have a level of part sharing, but yeah, this is why it's a stretch car and it's an honorable mention. Now, obviously, if you don't want to work on it yourself, if you don't want to cross-reference Volkswagen parts or piece stuff together with like a Volkswagen Edition switch, just part things together and do all the work yourself and just make it work. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, totally understandable. Go get a Corvette, go get a 350Z, go get a Mustang or GR86 or Honda Civic Si, whatever it is. They're all good platforms. This is for if you want a Porsche. So yeah, that's the end of the video. Don't forget to leave a like, favorite, and subscribe.